The digital clock on the dashboard blinked 12:01 a.m. when Malik Cole turned onto the quiet lane leading to his mansion. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, but here the world seemed hushed, wrapped in midnight silence. Frost clung to the iron gates as they swung open automatically, welcoming the young billionaire back after a grueling week abroad. He had imagined this moment differently. He pictured himself slipping into the house, quietly catching his wife Clara by surprise. Maybe even finding his mother Rosa still awake knitting in the living room, as she often did. He thought of dropping his suitcase, kissing Clara's cheek, and wrapping his arms around the two women who defined his world, his wife and his mother. But what greeted him was a sound that shattered every sweet expectation, a scream frail, cracked, desperate. It came from deep within the house and sliced through the night like glass breaking. Malik froze on the front steps, his keys nearly slipping from his hand. His heart lurched, muscles tightening. He pushed the door open, and the warm air of the house spilled into the cold night. The marble floor reflected the glow of the chandelier. But the elegance of the scene was destroyed by what unfolded in front of him. At the far end of the hall, in the cold kitchen lit by a single bulb, Rosa, his mother, the woman who had carried his future on her bent shoulders, lay on the tiled floor. Her frail arms were raised above her head, trembling, trying to shield her face. Towering over her was Clara. Her silk nightgown fluttered as she raised her hand high again, her face twisted in rage, her voice sharp with venom. "You're nothing but a burden." Clara hissed, her hand poised to strike once more. Please forgive me." Rosa sobbed, her voice barely audible. Her cheek was already red and swollen, her body trembling from fear and humiliation. Time slowed for Malik. The suitcase slipped from his hand, thudding against the floor with a hollow sound. His breath caught as his mind refused to accept what his eyes saw. The woman he had vowed to cherish for life was striking his mother, the very person who had starved so he could eat, who had stood in rain and sun to sell roasted corn so he could pay his school fees. Clara Malik's roar echoed through the high ceilings like thunder. Clara spun, startled, her hand still frozen midair. Her eyes widened, the fury draining from her face, replaced by shock. You're home," she stammered. Malik rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside Rosa. He gathered her trembling form into his arms, his heart breaking as he felt how frail she had become. Her tears soaked into his coat, and every shiver from her body felt like a blade cutting into his chest. What happened? "Who did this to you?" Malik's voice cracked as he looked into his mother's swollen face. Rosa shook her head weakly, unwilling to speak, but Malik already knew. He turned to Clara, his eyes blazing with fury. "What in God's name have you done?" Clara's lips parted, but no words came. The silence between them was heavier than steel, filled with betrayal and disbelief. The air seemed to vanish, replaced by a suffocating weight. Malik looked around the kitchen, the spilled bowl of soup, the shattered plate, the overturned chair. It wasn't a single act of anger. It was a war that had been waged in secret, a cruelty hidden behind his back. In that moment, Malik realized the truth he had been blind to for too long. And as his mother wept in his arms, one thought burned through his mind like fire. This night will change everything. Long before the marble floors and chandeliers, before the fleet of cars and the glittering skyline, there was a one-room house on the edge of a crowded street. The roof leaked when it rained, and the walls carried the faint scent of wood smoke from the tiny stove that kept them alive through cold seasons. That was where Rosa raised her son Malik Cole. She was a widow, her husband gone before Malik could even walk. Life did not offer her comfort, it offered battles. From dawn till dusk, Rosa fought them with hands blistered by labor feet, cracked from long walks to the market, and a spirit that refused to bend. Every morning she would leave the house with a tray of roasted corn balanced on her head, her back straight, despite the weight. In the scorching heat, she shouted herself hoarse to attract buyers. When rain pelted the tin roof of her stall, she covered the corn with a thin plastic sheet, her own body soaked to the bone. "Eat, my son," she would say at night, sliding the larger portion of food toward Malik, pretending she had already eaten. Her stomach growled in betrayal, but her smile never faltered. When Malik grew sick at 12, his body racked with fever, the local doctor said medicine was too costly. Rosa's hands shook as she unclasped the gold bracelet, her last piece of jewelry, her husband's gift, and pressed it into the doctor's palm. "Save him," she whispered. When Malik passed his exams and was accepted into the university, Rosa faced another wall tuition. She sold the tiny piece of land her husband had left. Land her neighbors said she should keep for old age. "Land doesn't put food on the table," she told them. "But education will put a future in my son's hands." Those sacrifices became the pillars of Malik's life, and he worked with fire in his soul, through sleepless nights bent over textbooks, through odd jobs that barely paid, through the constant sting of hunger he pushed forward. He remembered every blister on his mother's hands, every coin she counted by candlelight, every tear she hid when she thought he wasn't looking. When Malik finally built his company, when his innovation in health technology took the world by storm, the first thing he did was buy Rosa a house, this very mansion. He walked her through the grand halls, past walls lined with polished glass, and whispered, "You will never work again, Mama. You will never know hunger or cold or shame again." Rosa wept, her calloused hands covering her mouth. "God is faithful," she murmured. When Malik married Clara, he believed the last piece of his dream had fallen into place. Clara was elegant, educated, the daughter of a wealthy family. She dazzled in every room, her laughter drawing attention, her presence filling the air with perfume and sparkle. Malik thought she would honor Rosa, love her as he did. And at first, she played the part well. She smiled in photographs, draped expensive scarves around Rosa's shoulders, and posted holiday greetings that painted them as the perfect family. But slowly, Rosa felt the shift. A sneer when Rosa brought her herbal teas into the living room. A sigh when she shuffled down the hall in her old slippers. A sharp comment about her cooking, too oily, too heavy, too poor. When Clara hosted her friends, Rosa was asked to stay in her room so you can rest. Clara would say her smile sweet, but her eyes cold. Sometimes Rosa would sit alone in the dark, listening to the laughter downstairs, the clinking of glasses, the sound of a world she was no longer allowed to enter. Yet Rosa kept her silence. She thought of Malik's joy, of the way his eyes shone when he looked at Clara, of the laughter they shared at dinners. "If I must endure to protect his happiness, I will," Rosa told herself. She endured whispers that she was old-fashioned. She endured meals served late to her while the couple dined first. She endured loneliness in a house that was supposed to be hers. Until that night. Until Malik came home unexpectedly at midnight and saw with his own eyes the cruelty Rosa had hidden for so long. The echo of Malik's roar still hung in the air. His hands gripped his mother's frail shoulders as he helped her onto a chair. Rosa's breath was shallow, her chest rising and falling like a frightened bird. Malik's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Mother," he whispered, brushing her silver hair away from her swollen cheek. "Did she do this to you?" Rosa tried to shake her head, but the movement sent pain shooting through her neck. Her lips trembled. She wanted to protect him from the truth, to shield him from the shattering of his marriage. But the tears streaming down her face betrayed her. Malik turned slowly like a storm gathering, his eyes locked on Clara. His wife stood frozen near the counter, her face pale but her chin raised in defiance. She wore the silk nightgown he had bought for her birthday, its elegance now looking like a costume for cruelty. "Explain yourself," Malik's voice was low, lethal. Clara scoffed, though her hands fidgeted with the hem of her gown. "She provoked me. She called me wasteful. Always criticizing, always looking down on me as if I'm not good enough for her precious son." Rosa gasped, her voice hoarse. "No. I only asked her not to throw away the soup. People outside are hungry enough." Clara snapped, her mask cracking. "I'm tired of living with her shadow over us. Every day, it's your mother, this your mother, that she acts like I'm the intruder here, when in truth, she's the one who doesn't belong." The words landed like knives. Malik's chest heaved, fury rising with each syllable. He rose to his full height, towering over Clara. "You dare to say my mother doesn't belong in this house?" His voice thundered, echoing against the marble walls. Clara's eyes flashed. "Yes, I'm your wife. This is our home. Yet she hovers, correcting, judging, reminding me she was here before me. I will not be made to feel small in my own house. Malik's fists clenched. The image of his mother cowering on the cold floor replayed in his mind, the sound of her sobs etching themselves into his bones. Small, he growled. You feel small because you choose cruelty. You feel small because you cannot measure up to the greatness of the woman you call an enemy. Clara's face flushed crimson. Greatness. She's an old village woman. She smells of herbs. She cooks peasant food. She embarrasses me in front of my friends. Do you know how many times I've had to lie calling her the maid just so I wouldn't be humiliated? The room fell into stunned silence. Rosa's head bowed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, tears dripping onto her nightgown. Malik's vision blurred with rage. You called my mother your maid. His voice broke heavy with disbelief. Clara's eyes darted, realizing she had said too much. I only did it to protect our image. To protect you. Malik stepped closer, his voice low and searing. Protect me from the woman who sold her last piece of jewelry to buy my medicine. From the woman who skipped meals so I could eat. From the woman who walked barefoot to send me to school. He pointed to Rosa, who sat trembling yet dignified in her silence. She is the reason I stand where I stand. She is the reason you even have this roof over your head. Clara's lips pressed into a thin line, but her pride refused to bow. And yet despite all that, she treats me like an outsider. She'll never accept me. Don't you see, Maliki? She wants you all to herself. I am the one being wronged here. Rosa shook her head quickly, her weak voice breaking. No, my son. I never wanted to take him from you. I only wanted peace. I only wanted a family. Malik turned back to his mother, kneeling before her, taking her trembling hands into his. You should never have had to beg for peace in your own home. His mother's sobs deepened, soft but cutting. When Malik looked up again, his eyes were fire. Clara, every sacrifice I made to build this life was to give my mother rest. And you. His voice shook. You turned her rest into torment. Clara's breath hitched, but instead of remorse, bitterness spilled out. You'd throw me away for her after everything we built together. Malik rose slowly, his presence towering. Everything we built, his voice thundered. It was she who built it with her blood, her sweat, her tears. I am her legacy, not yours. The air thickened heavy with truth and rage. Clara stepped back, her face paling, but her pride still held like a brittle mask. If you force me out, you'll regret it. You'll regret choosing her over me. Malik's voice was final, his decision carved into stone. The only thing I regret is that I didn't protect my mother from you sooner. Rosa gripped his hand weakly, her tears falling faster. The house, once a symbol of luxury, now felt like a battlefield, its walls bearing witness to truths that could never again be hidden. And in that moment, Malik knew the conflict had only begun. The silence that followed Malik's words was suffocating. Clara stood rigid, her chest rising and falling, her eyes darting between Malik and Rosa like a cornered animal. Rosa sat trembling on the chair, her hands gripping the edges, as though holding on to the last bit of dignity left to her. Malik's fury surged. Tell me the truth, Clara. How long has this gone on? How many times have you treated my mother this way when I was gone? Clara looked away, her lips pressed tight. That silence was her answer. Malik turned to his mother, his voice softening. Mama, what else has she done? Please, don't protect her. Not tonight. Rosa's eyes filled with fresh tears. For years, she had carried the burden quietly, convincing herself it was her cross to bear. She had told herself Malik deserved happiness, even if it meant she had to live in the shadows. But seeing her son's anguish, now hearing the tremor in his voice, broke the dam inside her. Son, she whispered, her voice shaking. It was not just tonight. There were many nights. Malik's chest tightened. What do you mean? Rosa's hands twisted in her lap as she spoke. When you traveled. She locked me out of the dining room. I ate alone in the kitchen like a servant. Sometimes, she gave me the scraps after she and her friends had eaten. She mocked my clothes, my herbs, my accent. She said I embarrassed her. Malik's hands curled into fists, his nails biting into his palms. Each word felt like acid. I told myself to endure it. Rosa continued, her voice breaking. Because you were smiling, my son. You were happy. I didn't want to be the reason your joy was clouded. So I said nothing. I let her treat me like less than human. I thought, if this is the price for your happiness, then I will pay it. She lowered her head, tears dripping onto her nightgown. But tonight, she struck me. I tried to stay silent, but the pain. Her voice collapsed into sobs. Malik's heart felt as if it had been ripped open. He had been blind, so blind. He had seen the little signs, Rosa withdrawing from dinners, her silence during Clara's parties, her thin frame that seemed to shrink each year. He had told himself it was just age. Just fatigue. He had wanted to believe Clara's smiles, the staged harmony in photographs. But tonight stripped all illusions away. Enough, Malik said, his voice ablade. He rose slowly, his towering figure casting a shadow across the room. His eyes bored into Clara. You tormented my mother for years, and I didn't see it. You hid behind lies, and I let myself be deceived. But no more. Clara's composure cracked. Her eyes blazed, her pride wounded. You think I'm the villain here. Your mother despises me. From the day we married, she treated me like an outsider. She never wanted to share you. She wanted you all to herself. Malik shook his head in disbelief. My mother gave up her entire life so that I could stand where I am today. She welcomed you into this home with open arms. She wanted family, not rivalry. And what did you give her in return? Humiliation. Violence. Clara's voice rose shrill with desperation. I gave you status. I gave you prestige. Without me, you'd still be the village boy no one respected. Those words were the final straw. Malik stepped forward, his eyes like fire. Without her, he pointed to Rosa, I'd be nothing. She is the foundation of everything you see, and you dare to erase her. Rosa reached for his hand, her frail fingers trembling. My son, don't let this destroy you. Don't let me be the reason your marriage crumbles. Malik bent to her, his voice firm yet tender. Mama, you have carried enough pain for me already. From this night on, I will carry the weight. I will protect you no matter the cost. He straightened, turning back to Clara, his voice final, carved in stone. If anyone leaves this house tonight, it will be you. Clara gasped, her face paling. You can't mean that. But Malik's silence was louder than any answer. The truth had been revealed. And with it, the fragile threads holding their marriage together had snapped. The silence after Malik's words was heavier than the marble pillars around them. Outside, the wind rattled the branches against the windows as if the world itself had turned witness to this storm inside. Clara's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her pride, the shield she had carried into every room, every party, every photograph, was cracking. Her voice erupted shrill, desperate. I am your wife, Malik. Do you understand what that means? I am the one who shares your bed, your name, your reputation, and you would throw me out. For her. She jabbed a finger at Rosa, who winced as though struck again. Malik's body moved before thought. He stepped between Clara and his mother, his presence like a wall of iron. His voice thundered, do not raise your hand. Do not even raise your voice against her. Not one more time. Clara faltered, but bitterness flooded in to fill the cracks. You think your mother is a saint, don't you? She shackles you with guilt. She clings to you like a chain. You'll never be free while she's alive. Rosa let out a wounded gasp. Tears streaked her face. Clara, I never quiet. Clara snapped, her anger spilling like venom. Something in Malik snapped too. His fist slammed down on the dining table, rattling the china until a glass toppled and shattered on the floor. Enough, he roared. Every word you speak digs the grave of this marriage deeper. For the first time, fear flickered in Clara's eyes, but still pride would not let her retreat. She lifted her chin, her voice lowering into a cold hiss. Without me, you're nothing but a boy from the slums. Don't forget that. I made you respectable. Malik's laughter came bitter hollow. Respectable, no, Clara. You made me blind. You made me believe I had built a family when all I brought home was poison. He turned to his mother, who trembled in the chair. His voice softened. "Mama, forgive me. I should have seen. I should have stopped this long ago." Rosa shook her head quickly, her frail hands clutching his sleeve. "Don't blame yourself, my son. I chose silence. I thought it was better for you." Malik dropped to his knees before her, the billionaire reduced to a child in front of the woman who had raised him. "No, Mama. You gave me life. You gave me everything. And I let someone make you feel like less than you are. I swear on my name, on everything I own, it will never happen again." Clara's laugh broke through, brittle and sharp. "Swear all you want, but you can't erase me. My name is tied to yours. My family's wealth, their influence. Do you think you can just walk away? They'll crush you, Malik. Without me, you'll lose everything." Malik rose slowly, his eyes like fire, his voice unshakable. "Everything I could lose, every coin, every building, every title. But if keeping it means watching my mother beaten, humiliated, reduced to tears, then I want none of it. I would rather return to the streets with her dignity intact than sit on a throne of shame beside you." The words struck like thunder. Clara staggered back, her mouth open, but no sound coming out. Malik pointed to the staircase. "Pack your things. Tonight." Clara's face twisted, horror dawning at last. "You're serious? You would throw away your marriage like this?" Malik's voice dropped to a deadly calm. "This is not marriage. A wife protects, honors, and builds. You destroyed, mocked, and struck. Whatever we had ended the moment you raised your hand against my mother." Clara's eyes brimmed with tears, but they were born of rage, not repentance. "You'll regret this, Malik. One day you'll come crawling back. You'll realize the world only respects you because of me." Malik's jaw tightened, his voice a blade. "If the world respects me for being tied to cruelty, then I choose to be disrespected. I'd rather stand alone with truth than wither beside lies." Rosa sobbed quietly, whispering, "My son." Her tears were both sorrow and pride. Clara spun, storming toward the staircase. Her footsteps pounded on the marble like drum beats of war. Drawers slammed, suitcases snapped shut. When she descended, dragging 2 bags behind her, she didn't look at Rosa. She didn't even look at Malik. She stopped at the door, her face pale with fury, her voice low and venomous. "This house will feel empty without me," she hissed. Malik opened the door, the winter air rushing in. "No," he said quietly. "It will feel free." Clara's glare lingered for one last moment before she stepped into the night. The door closed behind her, with a sound that echoed through the mansion like the end of an era. Inside, Malik turned to find his mother trembling, her eyes wide, her face pale from the storm that had passed. He hurried to her, wrapping his arms around her frail frame. "You are safe now, Mama," he whispered fiercely. "No one will ever hurt you again." And for the first time in years, Rosa let herself lean fully into her son's embrace. The night Clara left, silence filled the mansion. No more sharp heels clicking on marble. No perfume lingering in the air. No tension hiding in every corner. Only the low hum of the heater and the sound of Rosa's uneven breathing. Malik sat beside his mother until dawn, refusing to close his eyes. He watched her chest rise and fall, making sure she was still there. Each bruise on her cheek was a brand burned into his heart. The following days were heavy. Malik postponed meetings, ignored calls from investors, and stayed by Rosa's side. He cooked her meals awkwardly, at first burning toast and oversalting soup. But Rosa smiled through every bite, grateful more for the love than the taste. Neighbors came by quietly. Whispers had spread Clara had been cruel to her mother-in-law, caught in the act by Malik himself. Some shook their heads in shame, others offered prayers. Malik said little, but the fire in his eyes told them he was done tolerating lies. On the 5th night, the doorbell rang. Malik checked the security feed. Clara. She stood on the porch in a heavy coat, her hair unkempt, her eyes red-rimmed. The cold wind whipped around her, but she stood tall, holding a suitcase in one hand. Against his better judgment, Malik opened the door just enough to look at her. "What do you want?" His voice was flat. Clara's lips trembled, her pride stripped away. "I came to apologize. To both of you." Behind him, Rosa stirred from the living room. Malik glanced back at her, then returned his gaze to Clara. You should have thought of that before you raised your hand against her. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. I know. I was wrong. I let my pride, my jealousy, destroy me. Please, Malik, I need another chance. I'll change. I'll treat her like my own mother. Rosa's voice floated weakly from the couch. Let her speak, my son. Malik hesitated. Slowly, he opened the door wider. Clara stepped inside her eyes, darting toward Rosa. For the first time, there was no disdain, no mask of superiority, only guilt. She knelt on the floor before Rosa, her voice breaking. Mama, I was blind. I let arrogance poison me. I forgot who built this home, who gave Malik life. I called you names. I treated you like less than human, and then, I raised my hand. I can never take that back, but I beg you, please forgive me. Rosa's eyes filled. She trembled, torn between the pain of the past and the mercy in her heart. Slowly, she reached out a hand and touched Clara's bowed head. I forgive you, child, not because you deserve it, but because bitterness destroys the soul. I will not let it destroy mine. Clara sobbed, clutching Rosa's hand as though it were a lifeline. But Malik's expression did not soften. He stepped closer, his voice calm yet firm. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. My mother has chosen mercy, but trust must be earned, and you, Clara, have burned it to ashes. Clara looked up at him, desperation shining in her eyes. Please, Malik, give me one chance to prove I've changed. Malik shook his head slowly. Not now. Maybe not ever. You need to rebuild yourself before you can rebuild what you broke. This house will remain her sanctuary, not your battlefield. The words cut deeper than any slap, but they were the truth. Clara bowed her head, tears streaming, and after a long silence, she rose. I understand, she whispered. She looked once more at Rosa, her eyes filled with sorrow. Thank you for forgiving me. Then she turned, lifted her suitcase, and walked out into the night. The doors shut behind her, not with anger this time, but with a quiet finality. Malik stood in the silence, his mother's frail hand slipping into his. You did right, my son, Rosa murmured. Mercy without foolishness, that is wisdom. Malik kissed her forehead. From now on, Mama, this home will know only peace. And for the first time in years, Rosa smiled without fear. Winter loosened its grip in the weeks that followed. The sharp winds softened, and the first green shoots pressed bravely through the frozen soil. Inside the mansion, the heavy silence that once suffocated every room slowly lifted. Malik's days took on a new rhythm. At dawn, he brewed tea the way Rosa liked it, strong, sweetened with honey. At noon, he walked her to the garden for sunlight, her hand tucked carefully into his arm. In the evenings, he sat at her side, while she knitted or hummed old hymns, the sound wrapping the house in warmth that no wealth could buy. He postponed board meetings, delegated projects, and told the world outside to wait. For the first time in years, he wasn't chasing deadlines. He was protecting something far more precious. One Saturday morning, Malik returned from the market with a bundle of sunflowers in his arms. Their golden faces tilted upward, catching the pale light through the window. He placed them gently in a tall vase on the dining table. Rosa looked at them with soft eyes. Sunflowers, she whispered. When your father was alive, he planted them by our old hut. He said they were flowers that never forgot where the sun was. Malik smiled, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. They reminded me of you, Mama. No matter how dark life became, you always turned me toward the light. Rosa's lips trembled as she touched one of the blossoms. You are my light son. That evening, Malik invited a few close neighbors for dinner. People who had stood by Rosa during her hardest days, who had prayed for her when she was raising him alone. The table was not lavish, but it was full bowls of soup, roasted chicken, warm bread, and laughter. Rosa sat at the head, not hidden away and silenced, but honored as the queen of the house she had built with her sacrifice. When the guests left, Rosa lingered at the table, her hand resting on the polished wood. This is what a home should feel like, she said softly. Malik leaned back, watching her with pride. From now on, it always will. Outside, the garden had begun to stir. Malik and Rosa had planted sunflower seeds together, days before their fingers pressing into the cold earth faith buried beneath soil. Now tiny green shoots had appeared, fragile but alive. Malik guided his mother to the garden, and together they bent low to admire the beginnings of gold. "They're small now," Malik said, brushing soil from his fingers. "But give them time. They'll stand tall, stronger than the wind." Rosa nodded, her smile gentle. "Like you once did, my son." The sun sank behind the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Malik helped his mother back inside, where the house glowed warm against the night. He paused at the threshold, glancing back at the young plants reaching toward the fading light. He thought of Clara, her pride, her cruelty, her desperate return. He thought of the forgiveness Rosa had offered and the boundaries he had drawn. Forgiveness had freed their hearts, but wisdom had guarded their peace. For the first time, Malik felt no anger, no bitterness, only resolve. He understood now that wealth was not measured in numbers on a screen or the gleam of chandeliers. True wealth was measured in the safety of his mother's smile, in the warmth of meals shared, in the quiet strength of a house at peace. Later that night, Malik placed a blanket gently over Rosa's shoulders as she drifted to sleep on the couch. He stood a while, watching her breathe, his heart swelling with gratitude. Before heading to his room, he paused at the vase of sunflowers on the table. Their faces had already tilted toward the faint glow of the moonlight, as if refusing to let darkness claim them. Malik whispered to himself, "We will always turn to the light." And with that vow sealed not in contracts or signatures, but in love and sacrifice, the house finally felt like a home again. A fortune means nothing if it does not honor the hands that built it. True success is not measured in wealth, but in gratitude, kindness, and the courage to protect those who sacrificed everything for us. Like the sunflower always turned toward the light, even after the darkest nights.